Let's talk what is perhaps the most prestigious brand in the industry and what I feel are the most underrated watches from Patek Philippe right now. So let's get right into it. So Patek Philippe is known by most watch collectors as arguably being the most prestigious brand in the industry. They have a rich history that dates all the way back to their founding in 1839 and are really known, I would say nowadays, for being the king of complication. Some of the best and highest selling watches on the secondary market. Of course, Patek Philippe holds still now the record for the highest selling watch at auction, with the Grandmaster Chine fetching well over $30 million at auction, which is just a staggering result for a wristwatch. But it just goes to show you the strength of the Patek Philippe brand. Now, despite their incredible following and the incredible results that they've been able to achieve in recent years, there are a number of watches from the brand that I feel are highly, highly underrated. Starting with my first pick, the Patek Philippe Reference 5134G. Now, this is an incredible travel time wristwatch that comes in at a case size of 37 millimeters, a thickness of 10 millimeters, a water resistance of 25 meters, a power reserve of 44 hours, and has a secondary market price of approximately $22,000. But this is one of those quirky Patek Philippe wristwatches that is definitely a love or a hate kind of watch. Now, personally, I absolutely love it. We're talking about a white gold travel time or complications Patek Philippe for under $25,000. Now, it's important to note in reference to the watches I'm talking about here, when I'm talking entry-level price points for Patek Philippe, naturally, we're not talking about $2,000 or $3,000. These are, handmade watches that are going to sell, in some cases, in excess of $100,000. So when I'm talking entry-level Patek Philippe, under $25,000 for me is really that entry level. And a travel time complication on a Patek Philippe in a white gold case with a manual winding movement, I think is an absolute knockout of a watch in the Reference 5134. Now, you can get it in yellow gold, in white gold, and you can even get it in platinum in a variety of dial combinations. So you can really find the one that best suits your style and personal taste. This watch is the precursor to the 5524 and features a slightly more classic case size at 37 millimeters, but I'd say in reality, it really wears closer to a 38, which I think is kind of the sweet spot for most watch collectors at 38 to 40 millimeter case size. I tend to prefer the overall look of it a little bit more to the 5524 as kind of a pure dress watch. The 5524 is much more of a sporty design, right? It's a far less elegant. It loses kind of the incredible Calatrava case and profile that watch has, and I think it leans into the more sporty realm of the world, which is not a knock against the watch. I think it's a spectacular watch, the 5524, both in the G and the R. But I would say it's just a little bit different. And for that reason, I tend to prefer the 5134 a little bit more. And if we're talking Patek Philippe travel time, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, of course, the 5164, which now trades for crazy premium. So we're talking about almost $70,000 since they discontinued it. Of course, this is the stainless steel model. If you're going for the new white gold blue dial version, I mean, we're talking in excess of $100,000 in the current watch market, which I think is just crazy. It's why I feel that this is a great, not only entry-level pick, but one of those incredible value bargains from Patek Philippe that are becoming harder to find. These are becoming somewhat of a cult classic that are really beloved by value collectors and watch collectors who are fans of the brand and are looking for something that is a little bit more classic in style and especially a little bit more historic, because this has the Geneva seal where Patek Philippe replaced it with their own in-house Patek Philippe seal in 2009. So I think it's a little bit of history that adds to the intrigue of the watch. And again, in terms of the overall design, the sleekness of the case, and just the overall profile and wearability of it, I absolutely love this watch, and it's my first pick for the best entry-level Patek Philippe watches. So if we're staying on the theme of quirky watches, let's talk Patek Philippe Calatravas. And there have been a number of references, but the Calatrava is really known for their classic kind of style, right? It's that timeless, time-only watch. Maybe it has a date or a sub-seconds at the absolute most, but it's really meant to be kind of a classic everyday dress watch that is really just time-only in nature. But there is a reference, or at least a model line within the Calatrava lineup that is quite quirky, and that is the Reference 6000, for example. Now, there's a few different generations of it, the 6000, the 6006, for example. Both kind of share that same design language, but I would say the 6000 is really just an overall better value because, of course, the proportions are just a little bit smaller. This is a watch that comes in at a case size of 37 millimeters, a thickness of only 9 millimeters, a water resistance of 30 meters, and a power reserve of 44 hours. Now, of course, the prices on the secondary market will totally vary depending on the dial that you're getting. If you're looking at, for example, the black dial, we're talking about an approximate market price of $26,000. the blue dial for around 24 to 26,000, the gray dial for 23,000, and the rose gold chocolate dial, which is a little bit more rare and a lot more desirable, is right around the $27,000 to $28,000 price point. Now, this has one of my favorite Patek Philippe movements outside of their manual winding chronograph movements, and it is the 240 micro rotor based movement. I absolutely love it. It really showcases a lot of the movement, which is what I personally prefer, right? I want to see the inner workings of the actual watch as opposed to the 324 from Patek Philippe, which really just hides all of the inner workings of the watch with that large rotor. So I'm a big fan of the 324, and the fact that the 6006 is one of the few Calatravas that ever used that movement really lends itself to being what I think is going to be a future cult classic, especially given that super unique design of the 6000. Again, it's a little bit more classically proportioned than the 6006, which comes in at a much bigger case size of right around 40 or 41 millimeters, if I'm not mistaken. But I tend to prefer the 37, 38 millimeter size that the 6000 wears in, just due to the fact that it is a dress watch at the end of the day, and so those are more suited to kind of dress watch standards. Sticking with Calatravas, I'm going to present to you my third choice, and that is the 5296G in a specific variation. It is with the sector dial. Now, this is a watch that comes in a much more modern case size and proportions with a case diameter of 38 millimeters, a case thickness of 8.43 millimeters, a water resistance of 30 meters, and a power reserve of 45 hours. This is a watch you can pick up on the secondary market right around that 25,000 or less price point, which I think is an absolute bargain considering you're getting a modern case size Patek Philippe Calatrava, but featuring a really unique, very old-fashioned, kind of classically styled, but made modern sector style dial. Now, the sector dial in particular is one I'm a big fan of, specifically because of the blued hands and the blued characteristics on the dial itself, and even the blue strap, for example, which for Patek Philippe at the time of this watch's release really seldomly ever used blue. Now, blue has become a much more prominent culture within the Patek Philippe range and within the range of a lot of brands, but really blue was reserved for your platinum timepieces, really your special kind of off-catalog or super rare limited production type of pieces. And so they use blue very sparingly, and every single time Patek Philippe used blue, in the 2010s or prior, it was a really, really special watch in my opinion. And this is certainly one of those watches that I feel has all the merits of collectability and is a future kind of cult classic within the Patek Philippe range. A lot like the 6000, but just for totally different reasons, right? It's much more of a traditionally made Calatrava, made modern, whereas the 6000 is just a completely unique and very, very weird looking Calatrava that has a lot of quirky features. But I'm a big fan of the 5296, specifically in the white gold. I tend to like white metals, but the rose gold is also really nice. That contrast of the rose gold case with the blue dial and blued hands really does pop. Now, moving on to my fourth choice, it is perhaps Patek Philippe's least desired watch lineup, and that is the Patek Philippe Gondola. Now, the one I like in particular is really only one model from the Gondola line. It's the reference 5124G. That's a watch that comes in with a case diameter of 33 by 43 millimeters, a thickness of 7.5 millimeters, a water resistance of 30 meters, a power reserve of 44 hours, and you can actually get two different dial variations. The salmon dial, which trades for around $22,000, and the blue dial, which trades actually at a slight premium for around $23,000. Salmon dials, just like blue dials, were typically very sparingly used by Patek Philippe, reserved really for, again, those limited production pieces, either in platinum, sometimes in rose gold, but again, it was really special editions or limited production watches that were really, really special. So to have a Patek Philippe Gondola in a serial production with a salmon-like dial is quite special. And this is a watch that really wasn't produced for very, very long. I think it was only produced for a handful of years. That rectangular sculpted case shape is really a love or hated type of design, but I really tend to love it because it's not something that Patek Philippe does very often, and really they don't really do it at all in their modern catalog. So again, I think in terms of just looking at the uniqueness of the watch and the fact that it's not something that is really replicated in the modern catalog and really wasn't done for all that long by Patek Philippe, it just adds to my personal desirability of the watch and what I feel makes it really a great watch and one of those underrated entry-level watches from Patek. And my last watch, it would be totally unfair if I didn't feature at least one complications wristwatch from Patek Philippe, given the fact that I mentioned Patek is known as the king of complication. And the one that I'm going to choose is an annual calendar just because they're probably some of the best values out there, and it is the reference 5035. This is a watch that comes in at a case diameter of 37 millimeters, a thickness of 10.5 millimeters, a water resistance of 30 meters, a power reserve of 45 hours, and in terms of secondary market pricing, just like other models mentioned here, it will really depend on the dial and variation and of course the case metal that you're actually getting. The yellow gold being kind of the most affordable model, which trades right around the $23,000 price point pending year-end condition. Now the 5035 is the first ever annual calendar wristwatch released by Patek Philippe back in 1996. So it's actually a very historical reference, one that's super important to the overall watch industry as it's the first of its kind. No other watch brand at the time had ever released an annual calendar. And the goal was really to introduce a movement that had kind of the same function to a certain extent as a perpetual calendar, but was available at a far cheaper price point than, for example, the perpetual calendar counterparts. I know that a lot of collectors today may feel that it has somewhat of a dated design, but I think it's a super historical wristwatch. And to put into context, at the time of its release, a 37mm wristwatch was on the larger side. I know that there were a lot of watches that were much bigger. Panerai by that time was already out making 44mm wristwatches. Of course, you had the Royal Oak and the Offshore and all those kind of different watches. But for Patek Philippe, 37 was totally out of the norm. And again, I just think it's one of those cool, quirky watches from Patek are definitely worth your time and attention. But again, one of those historic Patek Philippe references that I think are very, very underrated by collectors today, and I think are a huge sleeper hit for the future collectability because they're the first ever annual calendar wristwatch, and the first of anything in the watch industry always tends to be collectible down the line. So guys, those are my picks for my top 5 entry-level, super underrated watches from Patek Philippe today. Let me know what you think of my list down in the comments below. What are some of your underrated picks right around that $25,000 price point or less? Of course, there's a ton of great models out there, so really what's great is that bargain hunting, right? Finding that amazing watch that suits your personal taste and style. And from Patek Philippe, you know you're getting some of the highest quality in the watch industry today. Guys, if you enjoy these type of videos, please be sure to like the video, to subscribe for more videos like this in the future. And of course, if you have any suggestions, please feel free to leave them down in the comments below. I'm always looking to tackle new topics that you guys would enjoy seeing. My name is Marco for Bradeen's Jewelry. I'll see you guys in the next one.